If you're the requester and you know your budget, then you can do it, but PeopleSoft doesn't care who does it, as long it just has to be valid before it can be sourced to a purchase order. Okay, which brings me up to, so if you're just a if you're a PeopleSoft requester and you're not a buyer, excuse me, if you're a requester and approver, you don't need to stay on for the next half hour of this webinar. I'm just going to show a buyer how to take the requisitions and source it to a PO. But of course, everyone's welcome to stay and watch this. But we're just going to take a rec and source it to a PO. All right. So if you're a buyer, when you want to go in, you're going to want to set up your pagelet, and you should have done. You should have seen this in training. But you're going to, from your home page, click on your home link. And then you'll click on this content tab, excuse me, content link. And you'll see these TGMP pagelets. And the one that most of you are going to pick are these ePro recs to be sourced. So because the difference between the ePro recs to be sourced and the ePro recs multi-origins are just if you're a buyer, if you've got multiple buyers and you're only going to handle certain requesters' orders, then you can use the one for ePro recs multi-origins. But if you're going to be a buyer and you want to see all of the requisitions that are approved to come up in the pagelet, then you would just use this ePro recs to be sourced pagelet. And if you've got any questions about the pagelets and how to set them up after this, feel free to ask us on our support call next week, or give us a call. Click on the personalized layout. The default when you come here is 2 columns. I like to use 3 columns so that it's out to the right of the to the news and announcements that's in the middle, because you won't be able to move that one. But if you click on the pagelet, it's in your left column now. It defaults to the left column. You just use the arrows to move it over to the right column. And then you click on Save. And basically, again, a pagelet is just a query that runs on your home page. And every time you come to your home page, this pagelet runs. And you'll see it just refreshed when I clicked on my home page. When you first set up your pagelet, this second button, it's going to tell you that the pagelet needs to be customized. So this page, you'll click on this, and you'll need to come in here and put your business unit number. And then if you want to see all origins, you just put in the % for the wild, which is the wild card in PeopleSoft, and that way you can see all the requisitions for all of your origins. Most of you just have a few origins, and you would want to see them all, but you just put in the % and you'll get every origin that's out there. And I think it defaults to 10 rows. I usually change it to 30 just to make sure that hopefully these recs won't be sitting out in an approved status too long, because as you source them, they'll come off of this pagelet. There are some options if you want to personalize it. For example, you can come to the pagelet and you say, all right, anything that is, any rec that has a budget status equal to V, then you want it to be, you want to highlight the entire row in green. And you can just add multiple certain things. Like if you say, you can set up one that says if the rec's over a certain, over $1,000, you could make it red or something like that. Just kind of, you'll see as it just highlights the rows on the pagelet. And you just click Save. And now the pagelet is set up, and so in this pagelet, it's going to show you the business unit, the rec ID, the date it got approved. This is the requisition name. This shows you the origin that defaults on the requisition, who the requester was, if the amount, this RFQ required flag, you guys shouldn't worry about that. And then it gives you the amount, the current, and if it's valid, the budget checking status is valid or not. If a P card was used on the requisition, then there'll be a yes in this column. So if I want to take my office supply order, I like to double click and highlight the rec ID and copy it. And then I come underneath purchasing, purchase orders, stage source request, and requisition selection. And most of you know this, but if you're going to be using this a lot during the day, it's a good idea just to add this to your favorite and say OK. And then in your favorites get saved, and then so you don't have to do that navigation. You just come underneath My Favorites, and you've got your requisition selection automatically there. A lot of people do that for their approval page and their PO page and things that you're going to go to a lot during the day. So if you leave this blank and hit a search, it's going to bring up all the lines that are currently approved and valid, okay, which sometimes might be a lot of lines. So it's typically best just to key in or look up the requisition ID that comes in, and you just pick one or have one rec at a time. Brings it up. Those are the 2 line items that are on the requisition, and you're just going to want to select them and save them. And then that just puts them in the staging tables for the process that's going to run at 15 and 45 after the hour to source them into a PO. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get my next one for the fence repair. If I notice, for example, that the requester, as a buyer, I notice that the requester has used the wrong vendor, I could change this, change it here, or I could change it on the PO as well before it gets dispatched. So I just select that line and click on Save. So it's put them in the staging table. Again, the process runs at 15 and 45 after the hour. And I'm just going to go ahead, instead of waiting for that to run and build it, I'm just going to show you the purchase orders that get created. So if I go under Purchase Orders, Add Update POs, and do Find an Existing Value. One of the things that I like to do is on this PO status, I like to change that to Open, and then I save this search criteria. So I just save it and then say, these are my open POs. And I don't have to do my search each time. Now when I come to this search page, I've got a drop down where I just pick it, and I can have multiple different searches in there, and it automatically fills in the search criteria. And so then I just click on Search, and it just brings up the purchase order, all the open POs. And I'll just go ahead and click on that. I think this is one that I did earlier today for Fisher. So this is one for off of a statewide contract. You'll notice the PO status is open. It's not checked. The dispatch method is EDX. Okay, so if it's a statewide contract vendor and something that was ordered from a catalog, you'll leave the dispatch method as EDX. Okay, again, if you need to get a copy, you want a printed copy of the PO, you just click on this View Printable Version, and it will run the PDF out in your report manager where you can go pick up a PDF copy of that PO. Okay, you'll process this PO just like you normally do. You'll go into the header details. This set up as an open market purchase. You'll change this to, if it's this would be a statewide contract purchase. I believe it's a mandatory purchase. You'll say OK. If you need to change the NIGP codes, you can do a lookup. A lot of times I like to take off the last number and then do a lookup. Then it limits it just to the ones that are close to see if this has, if it's related to what it should be. All of the comments should have come over from the requisition. These are the comments that came on. If I needed to do some comments that needed to be sent with the PO, then I could add a row and click to Send to Vendor, and then those would end up going with the PO. If the buyer, I'm not sure if this buyer's got purchase P card set up, but if they do. If the PO is going to be placed with a procurement card and they have a card, then they can apply the P card. Even if it wasn't done on the rec, they could apply it on the PO. Okay, so it'll send the full 16-digit card number to the supplier so that they can charge the card. Once the PO is ready to be approved, you just click on the Submit for Approval. This business unit is set up for amount and chart field approval. Some of you don't use that functionality. I'm going to go ahead and just approve it. Oops. I thought I was an approver. Oh, I'm not an approver. I have to log in as myself. So approve it and then do a chart field approval. Come back over to the PO, and it still need to run through a budget checking process. So for EDX POs, you need to get it approved and then valid budget checked. And leave it out there, and then the dispatch, the electronic dispatch process runs at 30 and on the hour, where it picks it up and it sends the email. It sends the PO electronically back into the SyQuest application, and then SyQuest sends it to the supplier, and then that's when you should get a confirmation that the supplier has received your order. While that's running, are there any questions on the PO process? Okay, no questions so far. All right. Back in the SyQuest application, I do want to show you how you can go from, I'm going to log into, let's see if I can find, and log out of here. Once and this is just the training environment, but when the PO has gone, if you ever want to just basically go in and see a list of all of the documents for your agency, you can come underneath the orders and documents and search documents. These are for your statewide contract purchases. And you can use this search page to find basically all documents or just purchase orders. This requisition is really the cart number that's over in SyQuest. They call their once they've been processed into PeopleSoft, they get a cart number, and they're called a requisition. Okay, it's not the same requisition number over in PeopleSoft, but it's basically the cart number. But if you had a cart, you can do a search, and mine will bring up all kinds of items. But these are all of the carts, and if I wanted to take a look at the cart, I can just click on the cart number and open it up, and it will have. This was the cart. Of course, I can see the history on the cart. Once the PO goes back out through SyQuest to the supplier, the PO number will be right here. So you can click on that and see a copy of the electronic purchase order that goes out to the supplier. Okay. So there are some suppliers have their fulfillment is not necessarily electronic. They get an email of the PO from SyQuest. Okay, so most of the suppliers we deal with, Office Max, Grainger, Staples, Fisher, things like that, the ones that we do a lot of volume with, they get electronic purchase orders. But some of the suppliers that are in the catalog don't have the ability to accept electronic POs. and so it emails them a copy of the PO from the SyQuest application. Okay, and you can see all of those dispatch methods on the supplier when you look at the PO that they get. Okay, so that just is just a way for you to come in and see basically the information of whether or not the order went over to the supplier. Okay, so the system is a good question. So if the PO is EDX, you do not need to click on the dispatch button for the PO. It will get sent automatically to the supplier. So we have a batch job that picks those up and sends them over. If the dispatch method is print, then you will continue to click the button. Or if you want to email it out to the supplier, if it's a non-EDX and you know the vendor's email address, you can change the dispatch method to email and enter the vendor's email address. Of course, that's assuming that you've got you got your signature automatically applying on the printed PDF that gets created. Let's see. For POs to enterprise car rental, can we change the dispatch method to print so that we can send the PO to the local vendor for the vehicle reservation? Yeah, you can do that because that's really a non-catalog item, the car rental is. It's not. It wasn't ordered from the catalog. Stacey, you did have a question about why is it necessary to enter the chart field information at the rec creation level. Some people have approvers in their process that are going to code the requisition to where it needs to go, and they're not going to go look at the PO and do that. If you wait to do it on the PO, the only warning that I would have for that is if your PO has one distribution line, or your PO line has one distribution line, and let's say that it's got an amount of 1,000, and then you go over to the PO and you say, I'm going to split it out 500 to this department and 500 to this department, you, at the distribution level back on the requisition, it thinks there's still 500 left. So if you do it that way, you're going to want to make sure that you use this button on the PO that's called finalize. Okay, so this finalize document button. So if you change your chart field distributions on the PO that are different from the requisition, it's a good idea to finalize it, because basically when you click this finalize button on the PO, you're saying I don't want that amount to remain out on that distribution line back on the rec. Okay, so you definitely could wait to change your distributions on your PO if that's the way you guys like it to do it. Using the overrides on the PO. Just realize that if you split distributions, you'll need to finalize so that you don't leave any amounts back on the rec. It's just kind of a PeopleSoft really tracks the open amount down at the distribution level. So when you start changing distributions, it gets you just got to tell it. It thinks that you're just half sourcing it, even though the full amount's over at the line level. At the distribution level, there might be an amount still left out there. So hopefully that answered your question. Okay, so the process that we went through was creating a rec for statewide contract item, modifying the chart fields, and we did a rec and pulled one over for a non-contract item as well. We did review and submit. We ran the budget checking. We modified all the chart fields. We went through the approval process, and we created the purchase order. So that's pretty much from beginning to end of the process. There any other questions before we end this? I will work on the getting the recording process out there. I have to take it. It'll probably not be this week. I'm thinking it's going to be the first of the week. Rick's going to do the webinar tomorrow morning, while I'm working on splitting it out and getting it published to you guys. So I'll send you the link to. We actually posted on YouTube where you can go out and put it on there, or we can provide the file if you want to put it somewhere on your website as well. And then we put it, and then that way you'll have access to it. So if that's all the questions that we've got, thank you for your time, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.